gunfighters. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, firearms, ammunition, the right way, with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. For those of you keeping up, this is still a mobile episode on the mobile phone. Driving across country, I am somewhere in the Midwest, Indiana. I did not make very good time today. I've been stop-and-go traffic somewhere in the people hive that is the greater Chicago, Midwest area. It seems to me like it's lightning now. It's later in the evening. It's almost 8 p.m. At least my phone says whatever time zone I'm in. So, roads are fairly clear. Figured it'd be a good time to record if you guys care about that kind of stuff. I'll forego the normal bio, a real abbreviated version. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. Been blessed by God to be a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. Also hunted since I was a boy. I've been blessed to do a lot of things and survived them, not because I'm better, but because God chose to have mercy on me and gave me the skills and talents and had me survive those situations. And with all those blessings are meant to be shared. So let me share some wisdom and knowledge, hopefully, with you guys today. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. What are we going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life? Baby bolts. Little bolt actions. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I should, quantify what I mean by little. Because it's all relative, right? Compared to a 300 Win Mag, a 30-06 is little. And compared to a 30-06, a 308 is little. And compared to a 308, 6.5 Creedmoor is little. And compared to that, a 243 is little. I'm talking littler still. I'm talking not a short action cartridge, a baby action cartridge. There's no real standard for this. There's pretty much a standard for the short action, which is going to be your 308. You got your standard long action, which is more or less going to be at 06, and your short action is more or less going to be at 308. But I'm talking about you don't need that much. You're going even smaller than that. Smaller than the standard short action cartridge. A baby action. Even if not a baby action, then a baby cartridge. Something like a 223 or 5.56. Now, these are largely in AR-type pattern rifles or semi-autos, but they do come quite a bit in bolt-action rifles. And that's not the only cartridge we're going to talk about today, but pretty much anything in that size range. Anything kind of designed as an intermediate cartridge, or to fit in an assault rifle or an AR pattern, AR-15 pattern rifle, those kind of cartridges. In a bolt gun. Why? I guess we should lay that out. We should lay out the philosophy behind why, right? Because if I can get a bolt action, why wouldn't I get it in 308 or 30-06? I'd say that's a valid point, and most people do. These are not as common as like a bolt action 308 or a 30-06. But what are you trying to do with it, right? There are several applications. One is hunting. And although I think there are much better choices for deer, these cartridges can take deer. But what if you're not hunting anything that big? What about like coyotes? Right, one of my favorite, coyote rounds is a 223. Not because it's better than a 22-250, I don't think that it is, but because it's affordable and available. Especially if you don't reload. You're talking about varmint hunting, prairie dogs, coyotes, rock chucks, woodchucks, marmots, whatever, fox, anything like that. The 223 is a phenomenal cartridge, and not because it's the best ballistically, but because it's very affordable and very available, and there's a lot of options. So that's a big thing. Also, if you just want to run a bolt gun and you want something with a little bit more continuity to a, let's call it a full power bolt action, but you don't want to go all the way down to a 22. So you want to hunt and train with a bolt action rifle with a longer season than just deer hunting. So you want to hunt more, but you want more than a 22 long rifle. you want to hunt bigger animals, then you would feel comfortable. You could take them with a 22 long rifle, but you think, why not go with something a little bit bigger, something center fire? And with the price of a lot of the more Gucci rimfire rounds, like 22 Magnum and 17 HMR, you look at it and you're like, well, it doesn't cost a whole lot more, if any more, to get 223. So why wouldn't I just rock a 223? And I'd say that's a good reason for what we're talking about today. Likewise, another one, if you're talking about bug-out guns or mobile guns or something like that, and you want it in a manual transmission, a bolt action, because it's not legal where you are, you just want a bolt action because of the conditions. It still has the same advantage in weight of ammo. So there is the weight of ammo equation, right? You can just same with if you're talking like a M14 or an M1A versus an M16, the same equation the Army kind of looked at and said, well, simple bug out math, simple patrol math. I can carry a lot more of these rounds if they weigh a lot less. We can do the same thing. If you're planning on this being a long cross-country type gun, you can carry a lot more 223 than you can 308. So it has the same merit, even though you're not running it in, NAR. That doesn't invalidate the fact that it weighs a lot less round per round than 308 or 30-06 or other cartridges. And here's a big one, affordability. Some of these rounds, or not all of them, we'll talk about some more of the Gucci, more specialized rounds, but a lot of these rounds are some of the most affordable if we're talking like power to cost ratio. Like, they're not as affordable as 22, but they're very affordable for a center-fired rifle round. The most common of these in America is going to be 5.56 or 223. Less so now, but still very affordable, and more affordable in some other countries, I think, 7.62 by 39. That's a very affordable round, especially for what it is. That's a decent intermediate cartridge. That's a decent deer cartridge. More so, I think, than a 5.56 or a 223. Not that you can't take deer with that, especially with judicious bullet selection, you certainly can. But 7.62 by 39 is better for that. It's perhaps the best intermediate cartridge, and it's affordable. If you want, a bolt action, for whatever reason, you don't want an SKS or an AK, you want a bolt action, that gives you a good option. And you can still train affordably with your bulk ammo, and there's some, as long as it shoots same point of aim, point of impact, or you're going to re-zero it for hunting, there is some really good premium 7.60 by 39 ammo by Hornady and some other manufacturers. PPU makes some pretty good soft-pointed ammo that I've used in the past. And all those things that they say about AKs being inaccurate, a lot of that is lure, but they weren't designed to be super accurate. Bolt actions tend to be pretty accurate, and if you put good 7.60 by 39 ammo in a good bolt action, you should get good accuracy. There's nothing inherently wrong with that cartridge from an accuracy standpoint, other than the fact that much of the bulk ammo is made as cheap as possible, because people are going out and just plinking or doing whatever with it. If it's on the civilian side and it's a warfighting cartridge, if they can pump out twice as much and it's 3 or 4 MOA, this is better than pumping out half as much that's 1 MOA with its philosophy of use that it was designed for, because the main thing that's fired in it is an AK, and that was, as I understand history, designed as more or less a submachine gun replacement. It goes to full auto before it goes to semi-auto, right? Accuracy by volume, right? Or another way to put it is quantity has a quality all its own. So if you can produce twice as much for the same price, but it's, double the MOA, that's a good trade for the people making it in a lot of cases. But you can go premium ammo and a good bolt action gun, and it should be plenty accurate. Also, many of these are just going to be very similar to other bolt actions, just chambered in a smaller cartridge. So this doesn't apply to them, but some of these guns are more tailored specifically to these smaller rounds. So in that case, you will also save some weight in the action and in the overall firearm. Not on all of them, but on some of them. I guess we'll start talking about firearms. Some guns, like the Tikka that everybody loves, and I'm not going to rag on Tikka. I appreciate Tikka as a company, and I appreciate the amount of accuracy and the smoothness of the action they bring to the table for the money. But one of the reasons they're so affordable is that they pretty much use one action for everything. So, people debate long action, short action, whatever. In a Tikka, it's the same. Whether you shoot in a 300 Win Mag or a 223, it's all the same action, all just one action. They'll use different magazines and stuff to make it feed properly. So you're not saving any weight on the action, even from going from a 300 Win Mag to going to a 223 in a Tikka. And that's just an easy example because they use carte blanche the same action. Unless something's changed recently, I believe that is the case. And many of the other manufacturers, they're like, okay, well, we already make a standard, or they'll usually make two different actions, a standard action and a short action, which is still far too big, but they'll say, well, let's just go with the short action and chamber it in 223 or 760 by 39 because it's just way easier than re-engineering a gun, and it's not worth it from an engineering standpoint to do that. We'll just have a little bit of wasted space. However, there are some guns that are tailored specifically to that small cartridge, much smaller than a short action cartridge. To give you an idea of size difference, look at like a AR-10, which is designed for 760 by 39, a standard short action cartridge, and an AR-15, your standard 5.56. It's much, much different in size and weight. So if you can get one tailored to the smaller gun, then that's a big advantage as well. The bolt travel thing is not really something I fuss about too much. If you worried that much about speed, then go with the semi-auto. But it does save size and weight of action. So if you're doing a lot of overland type hiking and hunting and stuff like that, it does make a difference. So for the big one that stands out for me for that is the Howa Mini action. The Howa Mini action is a pretty cool bolt action, kind of scaled down and tailor-made to that kind of size of cartridge, one that would fit in an assault rifle or common, AR-15 pattern, that size. And it's tailored kind of towards that instead of just using a 308 action and putting a 223 in it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But those Howa Mini actions are kind of tailor-made to the mini cartridges. The Howas are decent. They're not American-made, but they're a decent gun. They're also not made in China, I believe they are made in Japan. And Japan makes some pretty decent stuff, especially as far as optics and guns go. So there is that. The Howa Mini action, I think, is a pretty cool, intriguing option. Also, the Seiko or Sako actions, mini action, you might check those out. They're, I don't think, anywhere near as affordable as available, but if you were looking for like a fine mini action, every Seiko I've ever picked up and handled, I've just been like, wow, that's a smooth gun. That's an elegant gun. So anyway, those exist. There may be others that I'm not sure of, but again, a lot of times they will just scale down an existing 308 or short action type gun. Some historic examples of this that I think are really good: the Model 7. The Remington Model 7, not the 700. 700 is like the standard size. The Remington Model 7 is the short, handy one. And I think these are exquisite rifles. They're great mountain rifles. They are great, just kind of short, handy, kind of the carbine version. If you want to think of the 700 as the rifle, then the 7 is like the carbine. And they made these in 223 as well. They made them in other calibers, more akin to like a standard size. I don't think they used any short action, but they did make one in 223. And that's a pretty cool little gun if you ever see one of those and want to snatch it up. Because I don't think they made these when they were making junk. I think Remington made these back when they were still making good guns. So, and I actually like them better than the 700. I think they probably always should have been as popular as the 700, but they never really were. But talk about a light, handy little rifle with a lot of the things that people like about the 700, just smaller. Now the action I don't think is smaller, but most of the other things are smaller and more compact than the 700. Lighter rifle, handier rifle. So anyway, you might check that out. That's a pretty cool deal. Also, if you are a scout rifle sommelier and you like the smell and the taste and whatever the notes of the scout rifle, whatever sommeliers do, I don't really, not a big drinker, but you get the idea. There are small scout rifles in the sub-caliber genre, in the scout, in like the scout community, the hardcore guys, which I do like the scout rifle. I like the concept. I don't consider myself an expert in it. There are guys that that's their whole bread and butter. They generally call these like the Cub Scouts, which is kind of cute. But the Cub Scout, like the scout rifle concept, but scaled down, which makes a lot of sense. I think one of the original specs for the scout rifle was to take down a rifle the size of a buffalo. Well, if you don't live anywhere where there are any buffalo, you can kind of write off that criteria for you. It won't be a scout rifle, but if you like the other attributes of a scout rifle, light, handy, quick handling, well balanced, but you don't need to take out a buffalo because you live east of the Mississippi, and the biggest thing to hunt there is there are some elk, but in general, the biggest thing is a white-tailed deer or a black bear. So you don't need to take down a buffalo, right? So a scaled down action makes a lot of sense. They have Ruger, did make one. I don't know if they still do, but that's my favorite scout rifle is the Ruger Gunsight Scout. They made a smaller one in 223. Also, there is the Mossberg MVP. That's kind of my pick for a blue collar. If you want like a blue collar quasi scout rifle and you want it in 223, it even takes AR magazines. So if you want one of these like mini actions and you want it to kind of do the scout rifle thing, like it's a good kind of well-rounded gun. It's not strictly just a coyote hunting gun, but you might have it as a truck gun, perimeter defense kind of gun, outriding fences kind of gun. You might consider like the Mossberg MVP. So that is a thing that exists, and again takes AR magazines. So that's pretty cool. Also, the CZ600s, they're not as common. In fact, I really like these guns. I like CZ a lot, but I don't know that I've ever seen like a CZ600 trail. But also, if you're in this genre, CZ doesn't get a lot of love here in America, but they're a good company that makes good stuff. And they may not be American-made, but they aren't, again, made in China or some Muslim country that wants to cut off Christians' heads and steal their women. So you might consider one of those. CZ makes good guns, and they've made good guns for a long time. Anyway, the CZ600 Trail is another one that would fit handily into this baby bolt-action rifle kind of category genre. And I wouldn't call it a scout rifle, but I would call it kind of in that crossover kind of well-rounded bolt-action rifle genre. Also, to talk about the classic scout rifle, kind of the epitome of a scout rifle is like the Steyr scout rifle, kind of designed in collaboration with Jeff Cooper, the guy who came up with the concept of the scout rifle. They do make these in other calibers, and I believe they make them in 223, so that would fit handily in here. That's a rifle that was, I think, designed back in the 90s, and it's still futuristic looking. So if you kind of want a bolt action with the more futuristic kind of Starship Troopers kind of feel, but a bolt action rifle and a scout rifle, light, handy, got some cool stuff going on with that, forward mounted optic, you may look at the Steyr Scout. Also, another kind of big contender in this, especially in the affordable range, going to be quite a bit more affordable, I believe, than the Steyr Scout rifle, is the Ruger American. Ruger American makes several different series like this, but their ranch series, and not the ranch rifle like the Mini 14, but their bolt action American ranch rifle. They make these in 223. They make them in 7.62 by 39. I was actually just checking out one of their new generation ones, like their whatever they call it. Maybe they just call it the Gen 2 of their Ruger American. But I like a lot of stuff that Ruger does. I've never been a real big fan of the Ruger American. It kind of seems like a hashtag #MeToo bolt action, push feed, polymer stock, probably plenty accurate. I prefer other things in my bolt action rifle, but they're a good gun for the money. If you're looking for a good, affordable, and American mini bolt action gun, then you might look at the Ruger American, like the Ruger American Ranch. Those are pretty cool guns, so you might give those a look. And if you're looking for your best, accuracy bang for your buck, it's probably going to be those or the Savage Axis. They do make the Savage Axis in 223, and that is, in my experience, a crazy accurate platform. and very, very affordable. So if you were looking for that, and this is mostly just for a hunting thing, it's gonna not have iron sights. It's gonna have your traditional kind of scope mounting, but you get one of those, you put a scope on it, Savage axis in 223. If you want more of the, coyote hunting, varmint hunting style thing, they're fantastic guns. Now, we kind of brushed over the Howa Mini action, but I want to go back to it because there is a couple of other calibers. I said I'd come back to the Gucci calibers that are kind of originally designed for the AR-15, but since you're designing a gun and action around a 223 size, kind of makes sense that you would add in some of these calibers. If you're talking about a normal size bolt action rifle, like if you're, let's just say you're getting a Tikka, right? I don't know why you would get a Tikka in 6.5 Grendel when you can get it in 6.5 Creedmoor, because again, you're using a 300 Win Mag size action anyway. So if you're going to 6.5, why not go with the 6.5 Creedmoor? It's more affordable, more available. It just makes sense. But the Howa Mini, getting back to that, it was designed for that 223 size, and it's going to be smaller, lighter, handier as far as the action goes. They make that in 6.5 Grendel. 6.5 Grendel, if you don't know, is a 6.5 designed to kind of have some of the attributes of the 6.5, high sectional density, higher ballistic coefficient, and an AR-15 type platform. Well, you can get that in the Howa Mini if that's what you want. So they make that, and they also make it in 300 Blackout, which I should mention, I think that they also make the Mossberg MVP in 300 Blackout. But the Howa Mini also in 300 Blackout. If you're looking for more of a short range gun and you want to do short range type stuff, and the 300 Blackout intrigues you, or you're already heavily invested in the 300 Blackout, you have it in ARs, and you want to run in a bolt gun, then that Howa Mini action is available in 300 Blackout. And I think I mentioned it, but they also make the Howa Mini in the 7.62x39, which, if you're talking about an all-around kind of medium and down game hunting cartridge, not varmint, then the 7.62x39 is a fantastic choice. So, some pretty intriguing options. It's a pretty intriguing thing if that's what you want. If you want one of these small, let's say, intermediate cartridges, quite a bit less powerful than a full-powered rifle cartridge, but quite a bit more capable than most handgun rounds, you might look at the mini bolt-action rifle genre. For whatever reason, legislative reasons, or you just live in an area, or you do a lot of hunting, and you don't want semi-auto. Ease of maintenance, forgiving of harsh environments and things like that, you want a bolt-action rifle, then any of those ones we aforementioned would do fine. Depending on the use case, right? Do you want a crossover, tactical, practical kind of rifle, or do you want a strictly super accurate varmint hunting rifle? That's going to kind of dictate what you want. So let your taste and what you're actually going to use it for dictate what you want. If it's going to be a trainer for a higher powered, more expensive cartridge, then it makes sense to get one the most like the larger counterpart, right? If you run a Savage bolt gun in a higher caliber, in like 6.5 PRC, and you want to practice, then get a Savage bolt action in 223 and practice with it cheaper. If you run a Ruger Scout rifle in 308 and you want to shoot a little bit more affordably, then you might get the Ruger Scout rifle in 223. You kind of see how that works, right? Anyway, some cool options there, some good, intriguing options. And there may be some other tailor-made, like not just guns chambered in those cartridges, but guns that were specifically designed, not just they used an action they already had, designed for those kind of calibers. If I missed one, let me know. I do like bolt guns. I have had a bolt gun in two. I think I've had... Anyway, I don't have any now. If I'm running a bolt gun, I generally run something full size. But there is a lot of appeal to that. That said, I like to reside out west where the animals are bigger. So a full-powered rifle makes sense there. If you're living somewhere where you don't need that much power, then there's a lot of merit to these baby bolt-action rifles, these mini bolt-action rifles. So it's a pretty cool genre, pretty cool sub-genre of rifles. I've said that I was going to do this episode a while ago for the patrons. I put it out on Patreon. A lot of the content you get either gets sparked by ideas and stuff in there. So you should thank the patrons for a lot of stuff. But if you want to become a patron, not just be a reaper of that, but a sower in that field, and you want to be part of that community, I would appreciate it. And also, you get to get a lot of cool benefits in there. There's a lot of Patreon-only insider episodes that you're just not going to get. You just never hear them because you're not a patron. Also, I do all kinds of stuff like share bug-out locations and all manner of things on Patreon that you're not going to know about, not going to be privy to if you're not a patron. So if you want to become one, there should be a link in the show notes for Patreon. Tactical tip of the day is going to be a book review. I've been going through quite a few books recently, as you might imagine, especially on the road trip, audio-wise. Well, I just listened to my first Jack Reacher book. Looking for books to get. I have an online library card and things like that. So, anyway, audiobooks, good. I came across Jack Reacher, and I kind of figured out what the character was about, which is former law enforcement, former military. Kind of sounds familiar, right? Lives as a nomad, right? That should sound familiar. Any of you that normally listen to my bio would kind of recognize that. I could identify with that, right? I live as a nomad. I'm a veteran, also law enforcement veteran. So I listened to one of the Jack Reacher books. I liked it. I was doing it through the online library, so the first one was not available. I'm sure that one is probably good. I listened to the first, I forget what number it was. It was called Blue Moon. It was good. It was a good book. It's not exactly Christian. I think that it's kind of, I would have liked it better if it was written from somebody with actual Christian right and wrong justice, as opposed to like I want to make justice whatever I want it to be justice, because there's only one kind of justice, and that's the proper kind, the right kind. God prescribes what justice is. And there are plenty of times in the Bible where it's righteous to kill somebody, to be an avenger of blood, and many of those things. So it wouldn't have taken anything away. It would have added a lot to me if they would have stuck to actual proper morals. But all in all, it's a pretty good book. And if the first one or the second one or whatever is as good, pretty good recommendation if you haven't read those books. I don't have TV or anything like that. I will occasionally watch a movie or something, or if the weather's bad, watch something on my phone. But the books, Jack Reacher books, it's a good recommendation. And speaking of books, the best book ever, the book, right? The Bible, the Word of God. Talking about some of that righteousness and righteous killing as prescribed by the Bible, and you could look into the whole just war theory and all that stuff on your own. But a couple of verses: you shall not murder. That's commandment number 6. Also, if a man is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. If a man sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. With that, thank you for listening to Gunfighter Life. I hope you appreciated it. I am humbled and blessed that you listen. Have a blessed day.